Hey folks, this is Kalani, and welcome back to another episode of Guild Wars 2 News. Now, I figured these work quite nicely on a Tuesday, seeing as we don't have a release page to look at, or a preview release page to look at anymore, which is a little disappointing. But nevertheless, so these may come out every other Tuesday, or every Tuesday if we get a large influx of juicy news. So, in this episode, we have a new website dedicated to Living Story called the Living Story Atlas. Rather interesting. The new CDIs mentioned in the previous episode have gone live, as well as a few others. There's some new gem store items which are of note, and there's a new trailer for the upcoming patch, as well as a patch name. That will be the final battle of Lion's Arch. So, stay tuned for all the good juicy parts. So, first up, we're talking about the new website, the Living Story Atlas. Bear in mind, this is kind of flooding around the place among forums and fan sites, so you've probably seen it already. If you haven't, there'll be a link in the description below. Now, this website contains an entire map of Tyria as we know it right now, and there are Living Story secrets, quotations, hidden around, basically giving you a few pointers, a few little spoilers about the Living Story and what's maybe to come, giving you screenshots and sound files, which is pretty cool indeed. It's an interesting website. Now, I've seen quite a few of these, but usually they've been used before a game's release to generate hype. The one that sticks in my mind the clearest is BioShock. When BioShock 2, I believe it was kind of generating hype and ramping up to release, it released a viral website where essentially you could find clues among the Flash website, and people would theorize and come together and say, oh my god, BioShock 2! I've never used it or I've never seen it used in this kind of instance, which is really weird, I'll be honest. But it seems to be an effort to allow people to catch up with a living story, which again I'd say is really weird, because there are two things in game already which would allow people to catch up with a living story, one being books potentially in the Prior's library, which would be an amazing place to just kind of go in and see and be able to read through these books of players' adventures during those living story sections, or maybe you read a book and then get to play through it yourself. And then they've got fractals, which are supposed to be events of the past, which we can replay as and when we wish. So those two venues I feel would work so much better for catching people up with the living story. I don't know, it's strange. There's people poking around trying to find the secrets. I've gone along and done the secrets myself. It's interesting to see, and it's nice to get the screenshots, but I probably won't go back to that website, and that's what worries me. I just hope that this won't be an abandoned project and it won't turn into that, which it has quite a bit of potential to be. I mean, there's a lot of controversy right now about the website itself, and on forums, on Reddit, fan sites, people are arguing back and forth whether this is essentially a waste of time or not, which I can kind of see both sides of the argument, which worries me in itself, because if there's even any inclination that this might be a waste of time, potentially it is, but I don't know, it's nice for now. So moving onwards to the Collaborative Development Initiatives, that's CDIs, there's a few opening up on the forums. Now, as well as everything that we discussed in the last episode, there's also a class CDI, which is really interesting, because if anyone caught wind of it, there was a forum post from devs quite a bit ago which essentially asked, if we were to talk about which classes need a bit of love, what would your choices be? And you had three choices, and essentially first, second and first in order of priority. Now, quite a lot of people were fairly vocal about Ranger, and it has come back as Ranger being the first class CDI. So if you're a Ranger, if you know of any range issues, you have any range issues that you want addressed, or at least you want kind of to talk about, head over to the CDI there, and that is your port of call. Now, obviously additional to that, we've got the ones that we talked about last time in the fractals, and essentially where would you like fractals to go, Edge of the Mists and how they can incorporate the potentially better features from Edge of the Mists into the rest of World vs. World, and then leaderboards in structured PvP. So again, all those CDIs are available right now on the forums, and links for those will be in the description below. So if you have any discussion topics you want to bring up for those, head on over to there and make sure you get your voice heard. On a little side, I want to have a quick look at the gem store. There's 2 new items being released recently. A new harvesting sickle, which is essentially a little golem in a broken barrel, which is incredibly cute, and you summon him and he'll do all your dirty work, like spinning around and being cool. And then there's Magnus's eye patch. Now, what's interesting about the eye patch is that it contains both a left and right version, which is really cool, although it only let you preview one, by the looks of things. So you can't necessarily preview it without the chat code, but I've got chat codes for you anyway, so they'll be in the description below. And you get both of them, by the sounds of things. So that sickle is staying at 1k gems as pretty baseline for harvesting things right now, which is still a little disappointing, and the eye patch is 400 gems. Now bear in mind that the conversion price from gold to gems has been creeping up to that 9 gold mark, so that harvesting sickle may end up costing you just shy of 90 gold, which is a pretty hefty investment. Ending on a little bit of a fun note, we've got a new trailer for the next patch of Guild Wars. Now bear in mind this is going to be the last patch in the living story for Season 1, which means this is going to be the end of Scarlet one way or another, which is going to be really cool. I guess what we'll be left with, if Scarlet dies, obviously, is whatever she's digging up in Lion's Arch, so that could be fun, although nothing really hinty or spoilery in the trailer or in any of the previews that we've seen so far. So they seem to be keeping the story elements pretty wrapped up, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. No spoilers around. So remember that they said these are going to be big patches, so expect something big to happen on that Tuesday, which is going to be pretty awesome. I mean, it's the final battle for Lion's Arch, so if we get it back, which I'm assuming we will, if we get it back, then that then starts rebuilding after that, which could be really cool in itself, because we could rebuild it either the way it was, which would be a bit of a disappointment in my opinion, or we could rebuild it to be an everlasting beacon of hope for Tyria in some really fancy flashy way, which could be really, really cool. So that's it for news for this week, or this episode, seeing as I apparently have no idea when these will come out. But when we get a juicy amount of news, and it's probably a Tuesday or a Friday, I don't know why those days are screaming out to me, probably Tuesday. I like Tuesday because we don't have the preview stuff that we usually have, which is really disappointing still. I'm sad about that, but we've got news now instead, so that's cool, that's a good thing. So tune in next time when we've got some more juicy news for you. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.